Today on MuscleCar, stiffen, lighten, reinforce. Project Dark Horse gets a pile of go-fast body and chassis mods. Rick shows off some spot repair know-how, and Altered Ego goes vroom vroom.
Hey y'all, welcome to MuscleCar. We've been covering some pretty serious ground on Project Dark Horse. We've got our 331 dropped in the hole, along with the rear axle, exhaust, and most of the big parts. Our goals for this car are pretty simple. We want it to be fast, we want it to be affordable, and we want it to be streetable. The motor we've got in it is pretty stout, and with it being a T-top car, it can be a little flexy. So to make sure the body can hold up to what we're putting it through, we're going to install a set of these Summit Racing subframe connectors. Now, some subframe connectors are designed to be welded in, some are designed to be bolted in. We're gonna go ahead and weld ours in, just cause it'll be stronger and faster. I'm gonna mark this so I can prep the body for a good solid weld. These come powder coated from the factory. Once I hit them with some 80 grit a little bit, they're ready for some heat. Now, this is one of those kind of things you really want to pay attention to, mainly because we're going to be welding right beside some fuel lines. If you strike an arc across one of them, you're going to be in need of a band-aid. Yeah, all that up there means it's galvanized, so be sure to weld in a well-ventilated area or you'll be sick, sicker than a dog. Well, that should stiffen her up on the bottom side. Another way to keep these old cars from flexing is by putting a good cage in it. And it looks like I got done just in time. I guess Rick is gonna get his hands dirty today.
Now, one of the main reasons we wanted to build one of these cars because they're cheap and easy to get parts for. The mailman just dropped off a whole mess of tube in here for a roll cage. And a prefab kit like this can really save you a lot of time. Might save you a butt too.
But doing a bunch of welding with the interior still in the car isn't a good idea. Plus, we plan on lighting this thing up a good bit, so it gives us a good reason to snatch interior out of it.
Now, we pulled her off the lift because we didn't feel like fighting those pillars while we gutted this thing out. Now's a good time to show you what we have planned for the wheels and tires. Now, we wanted something that was inexpensive, strong, and subdued, and these steel wheels from Coker Tire fit the bill. They're powder coated, so that menacing black finish isn't going to go anywhere. Now, they're wrapped up in a set of Mickey Thompson ET Street radials, which are DOT approved and require little to no burnout. Yeah, she's got a little bit of a rake to her, and that's going to look pretty dang mean when she's all painted up. Now I can get after this interior. Now, these seats aren't exactly pristine. In fact, they're kind of gross. Some of the stuff will be going back in, some of it's not going to be going back in. Some of it will be going back in, but will be highly modified. We haven't really decided what parts fit into each category yet. We'll figure that part out later. There it is. It's a good idea to try to not break these. This thing's creeping up on 25 years old, and plastic starts getting a little brittle. This stuff is great for sound deadening, but it's also great for soaking up smells and rat poo. Hazmat team. That's disgusting. Oh, there we go. Now what the heck did I do with my Whitesnake cassette?
Still ahead, installing a prefabbed quickie cage, a flathead motor that got poked into a different kind of Ford, and a quick way to spot repair scratches.
We started prepping the car for installing the roll cage by removing all the interior. Like we mentioned earlier, we wanted to lighten it up while we were in the process of doing that. Well, one piece by itself isn't all that heavy, but when you factor in this stuff covers from the front to the back, the stuff adds up. It's not that hard to remove. No need for fancy tools here. Anything you got that'll scrape should do the trick. You may have to get a little stabby with it though, but in the end, it'll come out. Let's see how much we shed. Well, that's right about 12, 13 pounds. That may not sound like a whole bunch, but whenever you add that up from 10 pounds here, 20 pounds there, all that weight means a faster car on the track, and it improves fuel mileage all at the same time.
Now, a lot of guys will pull all the glass out when they put in a roll cage, but since this car isn't going to be completely gutted, I'm just going to cover it up. It's like any good welder knows, always cover your glass. Speaking of lightening up the car, I don't think we need that. Now, we're using a universal cage for all Fox body Mustangs, and anytime you attach the name universal to something, it universally needs to be modified to fit, and this is no different. So we're going to trim the ends of the tube, drop it down just a little bit. That'll give us clearance for our plates. Okay, right now we got our bar trimmed down a little bit, and that gave us plenty of room for our plates. What you want to remember when you're setting this thing up and kind of designing where everything is going to sit, keep in mind that you have to have at least 1/4 of an inch between your pipe and the edge, otherwise it'll never pass tech. And when you're welding the plate in, remember, don't weld it all the way around because you're weakening the floor itself. So weld it about 70%. I'll usually weld the corners of it and leave the centers open. That way you still have the original stronger sheet metal that runs up under that plate, gives you a lot better support. We're building a street machine here, not a full-blown race car, so we're not sinking this all the way down to the subframe. I'll use a stripping wheel to remove the paint, but only where I need to weld. We don't plan on repainting the whole interior. I'll double check the height on my halo, then tack in the mounting plate. I'm just going to tack everything together now, get the bar set in there, and then we can set up the other bars, make sure everything's right before I weld it. From there, we can set the other tubes in, make sure everything's going to fit and clear. Once we do that, we can finish welding it up. A kit like this is going to need a little bit of trimming and fitting to get it in. But the nice thing about a kit is that you don't have a whole bunch of leftover scrap when you're done. Plus, you already know it's going to pass tech when you bring it in to have it inspected.
After the break, Altered Ego comes alive. Jeez, that thing's loud. And Rick steps it up with another paint tip.
If there's one car we get asked about all the time, it's our old Comet Altered Ego. You guys love this thing, and if you were wondering where it's been since we painted it, check this out. We put in a phone call to an old friend to help us finish the car.
Welcome to Milestone Custom Paint Body. My name's Jacob Miles. Let's take a look inside and see what we do.
This 4,100 square foot facility features state-of-the-art equipment.
This is where we do our body work. Gets a lot of dust stirred up in here. This prep station takes care of eliminating it throughout the shop. This 64 C10 here, we're working on numerous body modifications. It's gonna be an all-about cool truck. We even got some special plans. Might even see it on an episode of POWERBLOCK.
Yeah, I bet I know a guy that can help you get it on there.
I bet you do. Hey, speaking of that, you remember Clarence from Search and Restore, don't you?
busy, fella?
Yes, sir, he is.
Come check out his work over here on this bedwood.
Here's some of the wood for this truck that we're doing here. Got quite a bit of clear on there. Been wet sanded and polished out. Probably about an hour per piece on these little pieces, and I got about 6 more 8-foot pieces to do. Of course, he'll sit here and nitpick 1,000 more things wrong with it after an hour worth of buffing on it. But
Is that good?
These guys are pretty well known for what they can do with a car body.
This is a custom-made black cherry paint that we made in-house.
I like how just then, whenever the clouds went on top of the sun, it just turned black.
It disappeared. Tommy, come over here and look at this 1970 El Camino big block.
It's a sweet looking ride, man.
This baby will haul the mail.
Oh yeah. Sound like it eats the pavement out from under it.
Tom, come out here and look at this wash bay. It's about 600 square foot. We like to get our cars nice and clean before we roll them in the paint booth, so we wash them here, get them taped up out of the environment, and roll it right in the booth.
That way you turn out a lot better work, I guess, isn't it?
A lot cleaner. Tom, you got to check this out.
Turns out he's got a nice spray booth too.
30 foot long, heated, downdraft, Got the hose reels on the sides, keep them out of kicking up any garbage up in your paint job.
It's definitely a professional setup. By no means is this a halfway built shop, man. You got some nice pieces, some nice equipment, not to mention the nice work that you guys do.
Tom, let's go check out the other side of the shop. We got a lot of hot rods, muscle cars, but I've got something special here. I got an 8-in tractor. I got somebody that's been in the industry for decades, and he is a pro at knowing anything about tractors. Let's go meet him. This is Cody.
How's it going there, fella?
Good. Tom, this thing got a flathead V8. Would you like to hear it start up?
Why not?
The guy's very meticulous about when he restores a tractor. We do a lot of his body work and painting. He does all the mechanical and rebuilds the motors and transmissions. He puts his heart and soul in restoring tractors like we do doing cars and hot rods. Tommy, we got one more special thing to show you. Cody, if you'd like to do the honors. Tom, this thing's changed a lot since y'all first dropped it off.
Man, that's an understatement.
We did a lot of polishing up on the engine compartment. We got the fuel line plumbed from the rear to the front. We got it neatly tucked up under the undercarriage. We got your front rear axles all painted up. We started installing the glass and the moldings. Man, you've got to hear this thing run.
Does it sound awesome?
Awesome.
By all means, fire this dude up.
Let's do it. Well, what do you think?
Sounds pretty sweet, man.
Sounded a real aggressive sound with a little bit of thumping going on, so it was pretty cool actually to hear it running. I just can't wait to get this thing completed and pull the front wheels.
Yep, neither can we.
It's time for a golden nugget of auto body wisdom. A paint tip's coming up.
Hey guys, now you and I both know it doesn't matter how careful you are. Accidents happen. Take this Camaro hood here, for example. Now the black here that's scratched, well, this is actually a sticker. Now the OEMs have used stickers for decades because it's a whole lot easier to put this on as a car goes down the assembly line than it is to pay someone to sit there and mask it off and hand paint it. There's also a pretty good sized dent over here in the yellow. Now normally you take the stickers off, repair the ding, and reshoot the entire hood. But for demonstration purposes, I'm going to show you how to do a spot repair and blend. Well, you might be asking yourself, well, why would you do a spot repair? Why not just shoot the entire panel? Well, perfect example of this is if a car gets scratched in the quarter panel. How do you shoot the entire panel? You'd have to do this one, the roof, the other panel, pull all the trim off. It's a lot of work. So that's why I'm going to show you how to do a spot repair. When you're pulling stickers off like this, don't pull it too fast because you'll snap it and break it, and it just makes more work. So just take your time. Pull it nice and slow and steady. Now we lucked out and our stripes came off pretty easy, but if you got an older car and the stripes have been on there for a while, you can still get an eraser wheel, put on the end of a drill, spins around, and it just peels it right off. Easy as pie. I'm going to mask off the other half of the hood because yellow overspray on black graphics is not very flattering. Now the dents we're working on here are really slight, so I'm not even going to take it down to the bare metal because the OEM paint is a really good base. Remember, you're doing a spot repair here, so keep it as small as you can. I'm using spot putty here because spot putty is a lot finer than like a plastic filler. You don't want to build it up too much. You build it up too much, it's going to require a lot more sanding. More sanding means more damaged paint around it. You want to keep the repair as small as possible. Now when you got this thing just about blocked out and you see these edges here starting to feather out, I'm using 120 grit right now. That's the point that you want to stop and move on to a finer grit like some 180. If you go too far with this, then you'll have to go back and refill it with primer. Now it's time to mask it up. But I'm not going to lay my masking tape down flat like that and mask away from it. Reason being, that's going to leave a pretty mean primer edge on there that you're going to have to block out later. So I'm going to use a technique that's called back masking, and that's when you take the tape and roll it around like that. Now what that does is create kind of a rounded edge for the primer or the paint to bounce off of. And it gives you a softer transition. You're going to need to take a couple pieces of tape and hold that back, because if you don't, as soon as you start spraying that, the draw from the paint in here is going to take that tape and suck it right into whatever you're spraying. I'm using the K38 primer to prep the damaged area, followed by some guide coat. Now, once it dries, I'll block it out with some 600, then prep the surrounding areas with 1500. Another round of backmasking will prep it for some color. With the first coat, all I want to do is cover up the primer spots. Now I got to hit it with some 1500 grit again, and that'll kind of knock down that edge between the blend. And we'll come back and dust a little bit more base coat over the top of it and blend that edge further out. Then we can finally come back with a clear and then blend the clear. Every step that we do here is growing out a little bit. You've got your original sanding spot, and then your repair, and then your primer, and then your base. Each step, it gets a little bit bigger, so that's why every time I need to move the masking back a little bit. See, right now you can still see the outline of where I had that mask off and I laid down the first coat of base coat. What I'm doing now is going back and taking that color and blending it off into the edges and kind of losing that harsh side. So you got to keep it real centralized and just blend it out nice and easy. You can see now we have a nice easy transition of where that original repaired area was. It transitions out into the original yellow that's still out here. My goal with the clear is to cover up all the base coat, but I'm not painting all the way to the mask. While it's still wet, I'll remove the mask, then blend all the edges with an over-reduced clear. This is the last run of wet sanding. I'm using 1500 grit to basically go over and sand all the overspray off from my blend. A quick final polish, it'll be done. A little bit of polishing and a hand glaze and she's ready for a brand new sticker. Well, if you have any questions about anything you saw on the show today, you can check it all out at PowerBlockTV.com. Well, for this week, we're out of time. So until next time, we're out of here.